the original work of the autobiographical novel 10 Years of Marriage by Su Qing, a female writer in the Republic of China. Chapter 3. It's difficult to find. Truly started looking for a so-called career. First ideal is naturally to be a middle school teacher. Harry told my uncle what I meant. My uncle shook his head as he listened. Do you think being a middle school teacher is glorious? He knew that I had been a primary school teacher. So you don't know how meager your current treatment is. You can't have enough food for just a few $100s a month. I smiled bitterly and said, but I'm bored when I'm idle. It's better to just make do with it. The uncle laughed dumbly and said, what? You're okay with it? There are a lot of people who drill hair. Besides, do you have a college diploma? I know it's hopeless. Think relatives are not as good as friends. Relatives may be reluctantly united. Me friend said it automatically. And I am reminded of Lu Sichen, the former editor of Qingfeng magazine. He was the first person to appreciate my article. Makes me feel like I have a close friend. Now it's better to go to him and discuss it and give it a try. At this time, Shanghai has become an isolated island. Journals have been suspended one after another in migration and migration. Lu Sichen also moved his magazine to Chongqing for publication. This time I went to pick up my family members from home. Holding the determination to survive and perish with the country through burning cauldrons and sinking boats. Unexpectedly, the Pacific War happened when in carrying his ancestors on his back. It's incredible that all his property is in Chongqing. Most of my friends are in the mainland. Live here now. Naturally, we are getting poorer day by day. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and endure. There is another young writer, Pan Zimai. I was originally working in Hong Kong. Later, war broke out in Hong Kong. He lost everything save your hard work. Prepper a money order for self-financed stay in the United States also turned into nothing. He worked as a hawker in Hong Kong. Later, Dandan civilian ships fled to Shanghai. The old woman, who is almost 70 years old, hugs him. As a result, the old woman refused to let him go to the mainland. I had no choice but to stay in Shanghai and work as the editor of China newspaper. That day I went to Lu Sichen to explain my purpose. He sighed. Working here and no, will there be anything good for you? I told him there's nothing we can do about it. Divorce is uti. Can't get a single alimony. Even the dowry cannot be taken back. Now I live with a distant relative. Do you think you can rely on them for the rest of your life? Lu Sichen pondered for a long time, suddenly asked, Mado, you know Pan Zimai? I said that although I have admired you for a long time but never met. Not another moment of silence. Then he told me word for word that the matter was over. Naturally, the only thing that matters is making a living. He, Pan Zimai, has been very active recently. I'll introduce it to you. Ask him to help you think of some salutines. Where does he live? I asked hopefully. Lu Sichen immediately replied, you don't have to go to his house tomorrow. They will have tea at Yunmo Hotel. You should go and participate too. I said, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. He said it doesn't matter. Then copy the place named Mean told me that he was going to. He left with peace of mind. 3 p.m. the next day, dressed neatly and look in the mirror. Take the bus to Yunmo Hotel. When I walked in, I asked Mr. Pan Zimai where he was. They hesitated for a long time. Then he started vomiting. Send someone to take me to the 8th floor. This is a magnificent dining room. There were about 20 or 30 people sitting casually on the sofa in the east corner. I don't know. Lu Sichen didn't come. Ethri couldn't help but panic. She, Flusturidium, standing in the middle of the city. Pretty facey. A tall young man came over. Ask me who I am looking for. Speaks fluent Mandarin. It sounds surprisingly pleasant. The attitude is so generous and reasonably just like a Statusmani. Had no choice but to boldly introduce Mr. Lu Sichen here. Find someone named Pan Zimai. The words came at Pan Zimai. He said and smiled softly. Teeth white and chenier. You Miss Su? Please come and sit here. Your business. Lu told me in detail yesterday. My heart is like a stone falling to the ground. It's as if he is responsible for everything. From now on this has nothing to do with me anymore. So I boldly followed him. Thuray asked perfunctorily whether Mr. Lu was coming today too. He kept saying yes. Then he said that he would probably be arriving soon. Come on. Let me introduce you first. This is the famous writer Mr. Mu Rant. This is poet. Well, this is me greeting them cautiously for fear of being rude. In fact, whose last name is who? Although Pan Zimai introduced a series of theme like the autumn wind passing through my ear. Stent listen at all. Me impression of them is a blurrenly. Pan Zimai is so beautiful. His voice is melodious in my ears, irritating me, unable to forget it for a long time. After a while they all took their seats and began to have tea. Pan Zimai takes the lead because I was at a loss and didn't know any, and he gently invited me to sit on his left side. Miss Su, please have some coffee. He said to me politely. I remained silent and did not answer. Raise your glass and steal a glance. A look to the side rows full of men, but there are only thin and pale hands. Some wear platinum rings. Some of the paper is still stained with a little red ink. Such soft and beautiful hands of a weak scholar. If I am a woman, but the palms look rougher than themi. Feel ashamed. This is the first time in my life that I feel ashamed of profit and laborium, shocked by the prosperity of the city gradually falling down. Penzimai stood up. Praise a glass to wish you all good health. The Varian also replied. He then got back to business and told the story. It is said that we are preparing to organize a national literary and art association. Please give me a lot of help from all of you here. We are honored. He also added at the end. There is also a female writer attending Todai. Suddenly felt my face getting hot. Feel Sadim afraid it will cause some trouble. Look, Lu Sichin still hasn't arrived. I'm like an ant on a hot potress. Less finally, he Sadiok person signs his or her name in the prepared booklet. First one of them Shated the gutter ink pen wants my signature. Estel. Panzimai looks dissatisfied. Said let's ask the respected Mr. Murin to sign first. So everyone signed. A dozen more. Nemes the person on the left moved forward in front of my hesitate and don't know what to do. Just sign your name. Penzimai whispered to Mekand and sincere attitude. It doesn't materium. Sorry to be verbose anymore. I think I should listen to her. So I picked up my pen and signed it aggrievedly. Then he signed it himself. His name is only nestled next to mine. Feel an indescribable satisfaction in my heart. Just listened to them calmly. This day's rally there was no result from the discussion. Everyone seems to have come to have tea on purpose. You'll go and wipe your mouth and leave. Benzimai asked me to stand and wait. I'm full of hope. I thought that a person as sociable as him, it should be easy to find a job for me, right? So I just waited for him with peace of mind. One after another, old writers and poets all became birds and beasts and dispersed. Then did Panzimai tell me, Miss Su, let me invite you to dinner. I said you're welcome. I just want to ask you for some help. Not Srif then went on to talk about you sincerely. Mr. Lu has already told me in detail friends should help. He'll get back to you soon. So I thanked him, say goodbye and leave. A return to my uncle's house. Happily my uncle is smoking quietly. He came to see me. How many times have you been running around these days? But to look for trouble? I nodded in second thought. Shake his head again. He sighed. Oh, what else is there to do now? Many people are enjoying the blessing. Many people go to the mainland still. A businessman like me? Everyone knows that it is only for profit. There will be no problem in the future. Something is falling in front of my eyes. Make him some. Monet said. Dubusi Nessie have no capital. He said, if you have the ability can be a guest. You know how to be a guest. It all depends on being a good communicator and being good at lying. I'm not this talented. Don't even dare to make such a delusion. Then I tentatively said to my uncle, better try to get to the mainland. The uncle hesitated for a long time. I asked if you have any reliable acquaintances in the mainland. You have to accept it properly before you can leave. Otherwise took several puffs of cigarette. Many female students have entered the mainland because I can't find anything to do. Even though you have something to do, you don't earn enough money. The all married chauffeurs one after another as their little wives. I've been thinking about it. There are really no reliable acquaintances in the mainland. Only one younger brother is studying in college. But recently I got seriously ill with lung disease again. And I can't live without my daughter. If in Shanghai can still get a chance to visit quickly. If you are far away you'll never see them again. Me uncle was silent when he saw Meth and tell me, you don't have to worry too much. I think, if you can't find anything here, don't you go back to Incheng and live with your mother for a while? Can Kanjian change his mind? Better, otherwise your brother is back. Are you still worried that he won't support you for the rest of your life? I heard this feeling. Even Sadari know the situation at home. Farm rent yields nothing. My mother is struggling alone. How can I drag him down again? So I wholeheartedly waited for Penzimai's reply. 3 or 5 days have passed. No information. Must have forgotten about this. Just wait until the 8th day. I'm going to find Lucichin. When he saw me, he smiled and said, I was about to inform you. I don't know where you live now. My heart wants to jump out when I hear it. I know that Panzimai has already found something good for me. Why was I so confused that day? Why don't you tell him the address of your uncle's house? But Lu Sichin went on to say tomorrow. It was Prime Minister Kim who entertained cultural people from all walks of life. There are presidents, editors-in-chief of various newspapers, etc. The propaganda department said also there must be a few freelance writers participating. Therefore Repinzimai added your and my names in the middle reported beyond my surprise feel a ball of joy disappear Prime Minister Kim reception own has no carrier a lonely woman with no fixed about what's the point of running to eat one of his snacks? But Lu Sichin doesn't care what I think, just open the drawer, take out an exquisite gold-edged invitation. It is printed with the words Jin Shiking brocade nails. There are 2 lines of words printed in the upper left corner that are very special. It is said that all guests must wear national uniforms or blue robe and black kawadi, asked Ruth Chundao. But what should women wear? Lu Sichin replied indifferently, no matter what his clothes are. Panzimai asked me to go to. He don't have any dress. This is a trick that wooden monkeys are used to. I participated because I really had no words to express myself. I said, if you don't go, I don't want to go. Even Marek suddenly half reward to lift your eyes and look at me. His eyes are melancholy and contented. He said, because I have to study in Shanghai, I really can't live anymore, but I have made a 3-part agreement with them. First is not to write articles that are disrespectful to the country. Second, in shorty, I'm going to compile a book for them that values society life journalcy. Asked them if they promised. You have nodded and said that he respects my opinion in everything. Let's get down to business. Everyone talked about tomorrow's reception. Against result of his consideration, it's better for everyone to go once. He can therefore, rather than being suspected of being uncooperative. And then you can ask Panzimai to give a positive answer. Because he must be going to participate tomorrow too. He quietly came back with the invitation. Hide him well, didn't dare to let my uncle see him. 3 p.m. The next day he picked out a Cheong Sam with a blue background and a sky full of white flowers. Wear it with black leather shoes. He thought I dressed very elegantly and elegantly. After going ut, he just called for a tricycle like flying towards the World Hotel car passing the stadium turning to Lanzian Road. But I saw heavy ropes blocking me. It's said to be temporary martial law. Prime Minister Kim is going to treat guests at the World Hotel today. I thought to myself that I was one of the guests. Why are you stopping me? But I'm embarrassed to say it. Just follow the crowd to block Eton Lanzian Road. At the intersection of Marselikers connected one after and a third go to the right like a long snake formation. He thought to myself, guests with cars can now pass without any obstruction. Guests riding a tricycle, rickshaw, but it's blocked here for wheels. After all, he has a lot of heirs. What kind of courtesy is this for treating guests? A rich man wants to win people's hearts, deliberately creating the appearance of a polite corporalunexity. It was damaged by his group of underground people, seriously arranged as if facing a formidable enemy. It's not like we, the invited guests, treat him like a robber. I was about to turn around and have tea because you're angry. Saw Panzimai also coming on a big tricycle. He caught a glimpse of me and said hello. Asked me why I'm waiting here. I told I took out an invitation in his arms, explained the whole story to the police and security guards, asked them to let go of the rope for no security guards circulated the invitations. Then he looked at Panzimai's neatly dressed clothes. Politai didn't expect him to be a bad person. That's why I agreed. Panzimai asked me to jump out of the car, pay my car payment, get in his car again, drove away with him. Along the way, cars were still speeding on the left side of the road. There were also 2 or 3 people walking. One of them had white hair, a blue robe, a black jacket, and long sleeves covering his hands. I knew he must have borrowed it from someone else. He was walking on the road in it, like a zombie about to be buried. That was Mr. Mulan. Do you still recognize him? Panzimai told me. I looked carefully, and it was indeed true. When I was greeting him, the tricycle had already passed by him and got off at the door of the World Hotel. So, Panzimai and I walked into this towering building. When we got to the elevator, we saw countless well-dressed people crowded in. Panzimai stopped and greeted everyone he knew. I had to stand aside, anxious to squeeze into the elevator, but I didn't know how to do it. I had time to think of a plan. I saw a group of people dodging. It was like boiling water coming. They actually made way for me. I was overjoyed. Since I couldn't miss such a good opportunity, I didn't care about Panzimai. I hurried to the elevator door. When I got to the door, I suddenly thought of asking Panzimai to go in with me. Unexpectedly, when I looked back, I saw a burly and serious-looking officer standing behind me. I suddenly realized that everyone made way just now because he came in. I couldn't help but feel embarrassed at the time. I didn't know what to do. When the officer saw that I didn't want to go in, he smiled and said to me, "Please go in first." I felt that I didn't know which way to go. Everyone looked at me with burning eyes. I had to lower my head and go into the elevator. Then the officer also strode in. There seemed to be another round of courtesy outside. I approached 3 or 4 people with medals on their chests. The elevator door was closed. I stood in the elevator anxiously. The air in the elevator was extremely tight. I could almost hear the sound of a person's light breathing. I looked up by chance and realized that I was standing next to the officer. He had a half smile on his face, and his eyes looked into space. It seemed that he was looking at me, but it seemed that he didn't know I existed at all. I suddenly felt embarrassed and lowered my head again. The elevator rose up like a cloud. In a moment, it reached the 14th floor. The elevator operator respectfully opened the door. Many people bowed to greet him at the door. The officer still strode out. The others followed him out, step by step. Fearing to fall behind him, everyone was like a phoenix and lifted him up to who knows where. I came out alone after the game, and I had no one to turn to, so I didn't know where to go. I regretted being too impatient, and I rushed into the elevator first and went up with Pan Zimai. How great it would have been, but now, oh my, I almost cried. Just when I was embarrassed, a Kinku scholar in a dark gray robe came over to greet me. Walking with him, there was a middle-aged gentleman in a blue robe and black jacket. He had a handsome face, a hat-rimmed glasses on his nose, and his manners were so elegant that people were overwhelmed. The Winter-Sun Kinku scholar in a dark gray robe turned out to be Lu Sichen. After he greeted me, he introduced me to the middle-aged gentleman. This is Zhu, the president of Zhang newspaper. Mr. Guanglai pulled me forward and introduced me to him as Miss Su. Mr. Zhu kindly praised my good writing. I had known you for 7 or 8 years. He smiled and said that your masterpieces were often published in Qingfeng, which was edited by Mr. Lu. I wanted to be humble, but I didn't know how to say it. However, I knew that Mr. Zhu was an elegant person. He was quite close to Mr. Qi, who was very famous here. The Xinjiang newspaper was funded by Mr. Qi. After a long time, I replied humiliatingly that I had no social experience and knew nothing. Senior Quan Chang, please give me some advice. During the greetings, Pan Zimai also came up. We talked for a while. Someone came to inform us that a meeting had started. Please go inside. So everyone went to the door. The door was open. The inside was neatly covered with white moss. The vase is filled with brilliant flowers blooming with vigor. In the middle hangs a portrait of the founding father. On both sides are the party emblems of the first deputy. Below the party emblem, the officer I said just now stood solemnly. His hair was black and shiny. His expression was majestic, so everyone was afraid to move forward. After a long time of pushing and Chauvinji only heard a man in a national uniform laughing. Let this lady go in first. I heard that she was so scared that she turned back. Scene of entering the elevator just now was long enough this time. I refused to go in first, no matter what. So everyone endured for a while. Several white-haired old men went in first. Avarion went in one after. Anathari followed Lu Sichen. Clausolith. This time Pan Zimai walked with us quietly, and Li Zhuguangla had already greeted his acquaintances. We went there. We stood in the middle of the left row. There happened to be a vase in front of me. I looked at the crowd with the branches blocking my face. I saw 300 or 400 people gathered together. They were either wearing the national uniforms with straight noses, or blue robes and black jackets. Only Lu Sichen did not follow the rules. I stood with him. I felt like an outsider. I felt very embarrassed. Many guests who came forward to salute the superior. The superior also smiled and shook hands with them one by one. Pan Zimai said to me beside me, "Would you also go up and shake hands with Prime Minister Jin? I will introduce you." I hurriedly shook my head when I heard it. Only then did I realize that the superior who took the elevator with me was actually Prime Minister Jin. Everyone stood in a row. Tea and snacks were placed on the table. Prime Minister Jin raised his glass to wish everyone good health. Everyone was shocked. The Prime Minister was in good health. I watched and laughed in my heart. Then Prime Minister Kim gave a speech. Someone took notes and took photos. After that, many so-called celebrities gave speeches, but I didn't pay any attention to them. In the lively meeting, I just wanted to find a chance to ask Pan Zimai how the matter of asking him to help me find a job went. But when I looked back at his face several times, I saw that his face was serious, and he seemed to be listening intently. I was embarrassed to interrupt his attention. I wanted to speak again and again, but I held back again and again. While I was hesitating, I heard Lu Sichen suddenly lean close to my ear and whispered to me that Prime Minister Kim was watching me. Before I finished speaking, everyone dispersed. When I came out, Pan Zimai told me that he had found a job for me as a screenwriter for a Chinese film company. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.